Ecclesiastes, and your Bible may say underneath of, or the preacher. So all throughout the book of Ecclesiastes, it's referred to as the preacher. And I love this, and it's Solomon. And Solomon, as we know, is known for multiple things, but his wealth and his wisdom. And so Solomon is writing a book of Ecclesiastes as if he's writing to a young man who is trying to find the purpose of life. The question that everybody wants to know, what is the meaning and the purpose of life? And so he's speaking as if he's speaking to a young man who's trying to find his way. And man, what an encouraging man that he is. Because listen, so we'll start in verse 1. It says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. He says, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? One generation passes away and another generation comes, but the earth abideth forever. And he says, and so the very opening statement of the preacher is, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. Everything's meaningless. That's a nice motivational speech right there, isn't it? So just to get things clear, everything that you do and say is meaningless. And we'll get to a little bit further on of exactly what he's trying to say. But here's what I heard this statement the other day in our training, actually. The great Vince Lombardi, one of the greatest football coaches to ever live. Every new season, he started his coaching the same exact way. He held up a football and he said, "This is a football, gentlemen." To pros, to college people who've been playing football their whole life, he held up a football and said, "Gentlemen, this is a football." Why? Because you got to start with the basics. And you may know this, any of you that have teenagers know this, or any of you that we get to a place in a phase in life where we think that we know everything. And I know I'm still working through that, and some of you are too, by the way. Some young people, not so young people, but the preacher is trying to say immediately that you don't know what you think you know. And of all of your knowledge and all of your wisdom and all that you don't know anything. You don't know anything. You can't even breathe without me telling you can. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. All that you do in your own knowledge and your own wisdom and your own power is meaningless. There's no purpose in what you do outside of the Lord. He will ultimately close in that. So don't sit there today and think, man, what a great message. I went today to church today to find out everything I do, my whole entire life is meaningless. No, your will and your ways outside of the will and direction of God are meaningless. They are meaningless. And if we live 30 years without the Lord or 60 years without the Lord, man, we live a long time not being... Because what is life outside of the will of God? I say that there's no life at all. There's really no true life outside of the Lord. And so the preacher, who had great wealth, and he had great power, and he had great wisdom, and he had everything in life that a person could ever want, what does he say is the meaning and purpose of life? Well, some will say it's great wealth. Others will say it's knowledge. Others will say it's wisdom. Some will say it's power. Others will say it's the love of humanity. And then the preacher begins to say, no, vanity of vanities, all that is meaningless outside of me. And then he goes on to say, he says, one generation passes away, another generation comes. And what he's saying is, we will bury you on Sunday and move on Monday. Life goes on. Nobody is irreplaceable. And we're this morning, I was thinking about during an hour, they're working on the Youth Pastor Search Committee. That excites me, honestly. And let me tell you why that excites me. Because new blood brings new life. And I've been here 8 years. I've thought of what I can think of. It's as good as it's going to get, probably, with me. I've tried, and I've loved it here. I love these teenagers. I'm going to miss that tremendously. Because this has been God's calling on my life, and I've loved every minute of it. But the reality is you're going to go and you're going to find God's man, and he's going to bring new life. And he's going to bring a different way of doing things and a different perspective, and that's healthy, and that's good. Because then I think it'll just push this church to the next level. And so, but reality is hey, you're gonna be gone one day, and the people that you love right next to you, they'll remember you. But life goes on. Life goes on. Nobody is irreplaceable. The world spins without you. And so he immediately puts the young man into his place. You don't know everything. And your ways aren't his ways always. And you don't always know everything, and what you do and the way that you think and the way that you do things aren't always best. Meaningless. Not significant. Our thoughts, our ways outside of the Lord are vanity. Our own plans and our own ways get us nowhere. So I want to read over in Ecclesiastes chapter 11. With all that being said, kind of moving on, shifting gears, I want to look at what he has to say towards the end of this book of the meaning of life. Why do we do what we do? And that was kind of a long intro, but I want to talk to you about the cost if you do, the cost if you don't. The cost if you do, the cost if you don't. Whatever decision that you make in your life, A or B, one or two, whatever, right or left, every decision that you make in life, there's a cost. And you have to look at each decision and weigh the cost and say, okay, do I want to pay? There's positives and negatives to pretty much every decision that we make. You've got to look at each situation and weigh the cost. It's a biblical way, a responsible way of thinking. But here's a man who has it all. He has everything. He has wisdom. He has power. He has authority over people. He has it all. So what does this man say as he's gathering towards the end of the conclusion? What does he have to say? It's starting in verse 11 and verse 1. He says, "Cast thy bread upon the waters, for thou shalt find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 and also to 8, for thou knowest not what evil shall be upon the earth." Solomon was a tradesman. A lot of his wealth came through sending out. He had silver and gold and rubies and riches, exotic animals, all kinds of things. He would take and he would ship them, and sometimes the voyages would take 3 years. And imagine putting all your savings, all your investment onto a ship that's going into the sea, and it's going to be gone for 3 years. There's a lot of risk involved. In fact, there's a lot of it's sort of like. That was the original stock market. He's putting all of this wealth, and then he said, but if I want great riches and I want great gain, I got to take great risks. There's a cost in being wealthy. So he knew that he had to, if he wanted to be a wealthy man, the best way to do that was to be in trade and to send here and there, and people would pay great money to have things that weren't in their area. And so that's what he did. But he wasn't totally reckless. He said, put them into several ships. Hey, if there's one great and bad storm and you're casting your bread into the water, in other words, putting your money, your livelihood, your income onto the sea, he goes back and he says, but don't be totally foolish. Don't put it all into one boat. Spread it out a little bit. Put it into 7 boats. Put it in 8 boats. But that way, if something happens, a storm comes and it sinks, at least you only lost a portion of it. But he was saying there's a cost, there's a risk that has to be taken. There comes a day and there comes a time in your life when you have to take a chance. When you have to step out and move in your life in a direction that maybe you've never moved in before. Don't be totally foolish. But know that when it's God's will, if it's beyond your means and your measure and everything that you are as a person, that's being a Christian. You can't follow Christ and have an agenda. It doesn't work. Because how many times, how do I say this? People who've been in the Lord for a long time, how many times you look over your life, how many things in your life went the way that you planned it? Just in 8 years of being in youth ministry, every team, they all have a plan, and that's smart, that's wise. But to be so dedicated and unmovable in a plan is foolish. Because it never always goes the way that we think it's going to go. The wind blows a little different sometimes than we think it's going to blow. The seas shift in a way sometimes that we don't think that it's going to go. The sun doesn't always shine when we think it's going to, and the rain doesn't always come when we think it's going to. We got to understand that our ways, he says, the preacher goes back and says, vanity of vanities. Your ways are not the only way. There's a greater way, and there's a cost if you go your way, and there's a cost if you go my way. Measure the cost. And he goes on, if I wasn't a pastor, I've debated, I grew up on a farm. I love farming. And I love illustrations of that. But he goes on in verse 3. He says, if the clouds be full of rain, they empty themselves upon the earth. And if the tree fall towards the south or toward the north, in the place where the tree falleth, there it shall be. You know, and I think I read that statement again. It says, if the tree fall toward the south or toward the north, in the place where the tree falleth, there it shall be. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, will it make a noise? A guy with way too much time thought of that statement. It was a philosopher, George something. I don't know. Nobody remembers him, right? Because time goes on. But what it's saying here is what's past and what is done is done. When an oak tree falls over in the woods and it falls and it lands there and it lays there, it's done. You're not going to get 10 guys to go over there and huff that tree back into the hole and try to replant. No, it's done. What's done is done. What's past is past. And he's saying to move on. You can't change what's already done, but you have to go into life with this mind that things aren't always going to go the way. The tree isn't always going to fall the way that I think it's going to fall. And that's happened to me before, literally. Not insurance. But he says, as thou knowest not what is the way of the Spirit, verse 5, now how the bones as you grow in the womb of her that is with child, even so thou knowest not the works of God who maketh all. In the morning sow thy seed, and in the evening withhold not thine hand, for thou knowest not whether shall prosper, either this or that, or whether they shall be alike good. And he's giving a description of a farmer. I've been in this very situation right now. There is never a good time in the spring to plant a garden. Never. Every time I set a day and I get ready to plant, it rains. And we all know, if you know anything about it, you can't go out and just till up wet soil because it'll get hard and the plants won't grow. And so a farmer has all that he has invested into that. Now there's different ways they can get some help these days, but then there was nothing. If it didn't grow, that's too bad. And so he's saying when they look to the clouds and it looked like it might rain, I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow. And then you get to tomorrow and it's like, it still doesn't look good. I think it's going to rain. And then they hold off and the wind isn't blowing just right today, so I'm not going to harvest. And there's never a good day to take a risk. There's never a good day to take a chance. And now it's going, it'll be July before I ever plant my garden because it's never a good day to plant. It's never a good day to step out and go into something that's uncomfortable that might cost you. There's never the perfect day. You hear, especially grandparents who aren't grandparents yet, there's never a good time to have kids. You'll never have enough money. And so that's always the argument of like, you need to have grandkids now, so I need grandkids. You need to have kids. There's never a good time to buy a new house. There's never a good time to switch to a new job. There's never a good time. There's never a good time when it costs you something and you're comfortable in the situation that you're in. Being comfortable is the most dangerous place in the world you can be. Amen. Hey, church, it's time to take a chance in your life. And I don't know what that chance is for you. But if you're living comfortable, you're not living on faith. And you say, well, all right, I'm not just going to go out and just make decisions for the sake of taking a risk. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying when you follow after God, he said it costs you everything. It costs you all that you have to follow Christ. He says, take up that cross and follow me. It's not your life anymore. It's bought and paid for. Hey, there's never a good day to take a chance. There's never a good day. Hey, there was the ship's cargo. There was the farmer's crop. And there was the people's chains. What is an area of your life that you're holding on to? And I bet if we went around the room and you were totally honest with yourself, everybody in this room has something that they're holding on to that's security that maybe God's asking you to let go over an area. It could be finances. It could be location of your job. It could be for you. It could be the college that you're going to choose to go to. It could be a multitude of things. It could be a position in this church that you know that God's calling you to do it. You've put it off because, somebody else will do it. No, they won't. Not when God's calling you to do it. If He's calling you to do it, why is He going to call somebody else to do it? There's never a good time to take a chance. And what are you holding on to? What have you not given to the Lord in your life because you fear the cost? We fear the change. When God started dealing with me about the church plan a couple years ago, I sat down and thought about what it would cost. What does it cost in all areas of life? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for my wife? What does it mean for my kids? What does it mean for my life? I had to sit down, I had to count the cost. And I put it off because I was scared. And I still am a little bit, I ain't gonna lie about it. You're on a sinking ship. No, I hope not. But there was never going to be a good time. And I'm the type of person who I really want God, because I'm a little bit slow. I really want God to show me in this magnificent miracle of a way. And He doesn't always do that. Sometimes He does. He's been pretty good to me about that. But there came a point where I kept sort of like, I will pray about that again tomorrow, next month. Things are going good. I really can't right now. It's going to put a burden on the pastor and the church, and they're going to have to go. And there was always something that made it not an opportune time. And as sure as I'm standing here, there was one day I was praying. And God just put it in my heart that, man, if you don't make a move, things are about to get shaky. I didn't feel like I was running from God. I felt like I was being patient. But eventually being patient runs into running and making excuses. And I got scared then because God had made it real to me that, son, you don't start making a move, I'm gonna start moving for you. And man, I'd rather walk on my own than drug. Right, kids? I would rather walk on my own than God dragged me through it, but I started to count the cost. And here's the way I was saying, I was counting the cost if I did do it. Luke chapter 14 and verse 28 says, what man builds a tower, builds a building without first sitting down and counting the cost? So when I think about counting costs, I think about, what is this going to cost me if I do it? But maybe there's a better way to ask the question. What's it going to cost me if I don't? And that's how I started to look at things. What's it going to cost me if I don't? And I sat down and I counted the cost. And this is where I got to. I realized that it will cost me a lot if I do. And it'll cost me everything if I don't. And man, as much as there's fear, as much as there's worry of this or that or how things are going to plan out, it's going to cost me all this and starting all over again. God said, but it's going to cost you everything if you don't, son. You better start packing. And it's the same for you. It might cost you a lot for the next step. And maybe yours isn't extravagant to other people, but maybe it is to you. For some people, maybe teaching a Sunday school isn't that big of a deal. But to somebody who's never done it, who that's their fear, it is a big deal. What is God asking you to do today? Because eventually it's going to start to cost you in ways that you never dreamed. And when you do follow, it's going to pay you in ways that you never dreamed. What will it cost you? What's the damage if I do, and what's the damage if I don't? And I counted the cost for me, and I knew what I had to do. Then things start unfolding, and you get really frustrated. You feel like you're making, I don't know if you all ever feel like this, you feel like you're doing all the right things and all the wrong things keep happening. You ever feel like that? Well, there's two ways to look at it. Either the Lord's trying to get your attention or somebody's trying to stop you. So the other week when I laid in an ambulance and they're shocking me, which was a little bit cool. I don't want to do it again. But it was a little bit cool. I gotta be honest. Because every little boy's like, I touched the electric fence. And they was like do other things too. We won't do that on the electric fence. But you always got to touch the electric. You just got to see what it feels like. Just touch it a little bit. And it was sort of like that, except different. Totally different. But, sort of like but when I was later and I got done and I came home, that was an emotional time for me a few weeks ago. It really was, because I went home and I said, why? A month before I got married and was going into my senior year of Bible college, I got in a head-on collision, broke my femur, got married in a wheelchair, and I raised my hands to the clouds and asked God why. And I went home and I read my Bible, and I opened 1 Peter chapter 4. It says, "Think it not strange, the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to me." Why are you surprised that you're trying to do good and bad things are happening? Why? Do you think you're going to step onto a football field and you're just going to lay down unless you... Why are you going to go into a competition with the enemy and think it ain't going to be hard? And so I laid there, and the question was even posed to me, "Corey, you got to rethink things now, don't you?" I said, no. No, all this did was I went out and I cried when I came. Daniel will tell you, she was a little bit worried after I came home, and I cried because I was like, man, what just happened? I don't understand why the Lord's put me through this. And I went through and I prayed. I took the week, I prayed, and I went through everything. God just reassured me in a million different ways that you're doing exactly what I want you to do. Amen. And we went there and I looked over and people began to get more feedback and more input. And there's a people that needs a place to worship. There's a people who are looking for a church, and God's called me to do that, and I have to do it, and I have to go. And there's an enemy that's trying to stop me. And not always. Sometimes the bad things aren't trying to get you to quit. Sometimes the bad things are the enemy trying to stop you. And that's what it was for me in life, and I have full assurance of that. And there's going to continually be battle after battle after battle because you don't want it to happen. What will it cost you? Hey, I'm done. What time is it? I went an hour last time. I'm going to be early. Because I'm putting the ball in your court. I can sit here and talk and say this. I can give you 3 more illustrations and a couple poems and give you talk about how this happened in this person's life and that person's life. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to spare you of that. I want to challenge you with this right now. There's an area in your life that you need to take a chance. Maybe you've taken a chance. Maybe you're in the process of those changes. And if you are, then you still need to pray because the battle's coming to you. But there's many of you in this place that there's a chance you need to take in your life. That God is challenging you to do and you don't want to let go of it. And there's never a good day. But if there were to be a good day, today would be that day. Today is the day of salvation. You know, there's some of you, again, I don't know what your situation is, but there's a chance you need to trust in God today. Because your money won't always be there. Your comfort won't always be. Your house is, you can ask Marcia's daughter, Mary, your stuff, your belongings, it could be gone in an instant. If that's what your foundation is on, man, you could lose it all. Somebody could sue you for something, you go out here today, get in a car accident, somebody can sue you, take everything you got. If that's what your foundation is, that's what you're invested in, vanity of vanities. Where do you need to take a chance out of your own? What are you afraid to do that God, not that you want to do, that God wants you to do? Let me make that clear. Not what you want to do, not what the preacher wants you to do. What decisions in your life do you need to make that you're afraid to take because of what it'll cost you? In 1999, I sat on a chair at Expo Land. And I heard the gospel preached to me in a way I've never heard. And you know what every young person thinks of, and what any person thinks of, I think, when they start challenging with the Lord and giving your life to the Lord and doing that, what's it going to cost me? What's it going to, who's looking? Who's watching? If I come down today and give my heart or my life to the Lord, I watched my friend who grew up in church. He was leading a Bible study with me. And he came down and got saved. And he cried and he said, I'm afraid of what people will say. You know what they did? They embraced him. They said, man, and other people moved because he wasn't afraid to do it. Other people moved as well. Because there's church people and good people all over the place who don't know the Lord. And it's never a good day because they're going to look at me they're going to think I should have already known. And I grew up that, hey, if you're sitting in the chair and if you're in a church today and you don't know, who cares what anybody else thinks? And I counted the cost that day. I counted, all right, I'm not going to be able to have this bad habit in my life, and I'm not going to be able to do this bad thing in my life. All these things that I was holding on to, I was counting the cost. It's dumb things. Like, man, I'm going to have to quit dipping snuff. Man, I'm going to have to quit doing this and that. I'm going to have to quit all this stuff. And that's the way I looked at it. I thought about what it was going to cost me. And man, when everything that I laid down, he brought something greater into my life. And I mean that. Man, if you're holding on to something in your life because you just can't give it up, man, God's got a blessing for you when you give it up. And I can't listen. Well, I kind of can go biblical. We're not going to do that just for the sake of time. I'm going to say, when you lay things down for the Lord, He'll raise up some awesome things in your life. What are you afraid of today? What is the Lord asking you to do? All throughout the Bible, I've never, ever, from Genesis to Revelation, read about a great man or a great woman of God who lived in comfort and ease. You just don't read about it. Just don't read about it. But were they happy? They were beyond happy. They had joy. It is exciting to know that I ain't got to worry about it. Because if God calls me to it, it ain't my problem anymore, right? I mean, it's sort of like the pressure's off a little bit, kind of. If you can think that holy, that's a great way to think. Because when God calls you to it, it's not. That's been my issue with the church. I feel like I got to do this. I got to bring these people. I got to do all that. And everything I look back that He's done and provided for, I didn't have nothing to do with it. I kept feeling like, well, man, I got to get this place and I got to bring in these people and got to raise these funds. And there is literally nothing to this point that I did that God provided that I had anything to do with. And none of it went the way at all like I thought it was going to. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? He's got you. You step out, it's His problem. What are you afraid of? Maybe it's giving your life to the Lord today. You're afraid of what it's going to cost you if you do. What if you don't? What if you don't? There's a cost if you don't. There's a cost if you do. It'll cost you a lot if you do. It'll cost you everything if you don't. Hey, I want to pray. If you would come this morning and play the music. Whoever's closing us. And I want to challenge you this morning. Come to this altar this morning and pray. What is it that you need to take a chance for in your life? What is going to cost you something great, and you've been afraid to do it, but the Lord has laid it on your life that you need to make a move?